Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's so exciting. I enjoy these rides. Absolutely. And I know Linda does too. You can find us on the radio at icradio.media, where we are Fox News affiliates. You can also find us on television, 182 on Charter Communications, Spectrum now. You can also find us syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. It's so fabulous to be with you today. Oh, by the way, continue sending emails. I love them. Absolutely. And I take them to heart. I really do. So any research you would love for me to do, I was the geek in school. I'm still the geek. I love research. So, but you know, what's easier now is back in my day, back in the 1970s, we had the World Book Encyclopedia. Basically, that's all we had. We had no internet. You couldn't like quickly look up for something, but I could almost quote the encyclopedia because I was just always through it. And I love the body human. And I thought about becoming a doctor, medical doctor, because I would look through the body human, and you know, those little sleeves protect that you would turn the sleeves and you would see different organs of the human body, you know, the inside. And I would just spend hours looking at those. Oh, that's where the heart is. By the way, it doesn't look like a little Valentine, and also all these little different things, you know, but that's what we need to be doing. And we need to vote as if it's our last breath. I mean, this is how crucial it is. Linda Hansen is with me right now, one of my favorite guests, and I've asked you to come before the election. And because we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of tidbits we want to talk about. So let's talk about what just happened in your area and why Christians need to be paying attention to this.
Well, absolutely. I know before we were recording, you said you wanted to discuss what happened at one of the Kamala Harris rallies when two young people shouted out, "Jesus is Lord and Christ is King," I believe they said, in a rally here in Wisconsin. And she just didn't miss a beat and just said, "Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. You got to go to the smaller rally down the street." And everybody laughed and thought it was so funny. But for Kamala Harris to say, "You're at the wrong rally," to someone that says Jesus is Lord, whether you are atheist, Muslim, Jew, Christian, or whatever, right? This should concern you that she is saying Christians are not welcome at her rally. I thought America was for all people, all religions, all faiths, all nationalities, all backgrounds. So for her to say that they were at the wrong rally really shows us her true colors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I thought about that many times. I mean, I just couldn't get it out of my head when I heard that. You know, you claim to be the party of unity, really? And you say something like that, it's just a slap in the face to all Americans. Mm-hmm. So if you're a Christian and you're sitting this out and you don't have plans to vote, something's wrong.
Absolutely. We need to vote. Scripturally, we can see how not only did Jesus do most of his public appearances in the marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. He spoke to the business leaders, the community leaders, the government leaders, but all throughout the Old and New Testament, you see God involved in the affairs of man and God involved in government. And it is, up to us as believers and as citizens, even if we're not a believer in Jesus Christ, even if you have a listener right now who hasn't come to the point where they want to trust Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior, they are still obviously welcome as a citizen in America, and their vote is wanted as well. So whether they agree with us or they don't agree with us, that's what America is all about. And God governs in the affairs of man. So, for Christians, it's our obligation as a believer to be educated on the issues, to understand them, how they affect our daily life and the things that are important to the Lord, but also how will they affect our nation and the world as a whole. And so it's up to us to be very involved. I just did a social media post. People can find me on LinkedIn, and Instagram and things, but I just did a social media post. I do a Tuesday tip frequently, and it was become informed, involved, and impactful, which is actually one of my registered trademarks, become informed, involved, and impactful. And it is something that I feel is so important. We have to be informed on the issues and not just headline reading informed, but dig a little deeper. Go, 5 or 10 different sources to find out if a story is true. Be informed, be involved in your community, be involved in solving the problems you hope to see solved. And that way you can be impactful as a voter and as a citizen. So become informed, involved, and impactful.
You speak to business owners frequently, on a frequent basis. So when they are interviewing and they are looking for employees for their business, they want somebody who's informed, don't they? And someone who's community minded, because people want to work in the community and they want their business to really be thought of as a stronghold in the community. So why would you hire someone like Kamala Harris, who seems to want division, instead of someone who goes and works at your local McDonald's as president of the United States? I mean, there's just such a contrast between the two. I can't.
There is such a contrast between the two, but only those who are truly informed actually see it. So only those who go beyond the headlines, who go beyond the mainstream media, who look at other sources to find out, well, what's really true, only those actually see it. Because if you're just a consumer of the, mainstream media, the basic news networks that have been around for legacy media, if you're just a consumer of probably your city's newspaper, they all get the same talking points all the time. And, the world would come to believe that Trump is the worst thing ever, right? But you start to really learn from people on the ground. You start to learn from people who actually work with him, not the people who have a bad taste in their mouth for working with them, or people like certain people that were in his administration who have a tie to money that would dry up because of their corrupt business dealings if Trump becomes president. So if Trump becomes president, there's an awful lot of people who are going to be upset because it dries up their money flow from their corrupt business deals. So before you believe something in the headlines about Trump or anybody else, start to look at the spider web of connections, and especially the spider web of the money flow. So that's important for business owners, like you mentioned, but it's also important for employees. Like, look at what is the bigger picture. So yes, we need to all be informed, involved, and impactful, like my trademark says, but also we need to help others become so. Because it's only by educating others and helping them to see beyond what the propaganda machine is, shows like yours and others that try to get a different perspective out, like maybe some truth out. Some truth. And people can fact check us, right? They go ahead and fact check us. And, it's great, but that's what it's about. So we can't just go from the headlines. And business owners, please, 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 I plead with you, please, you are like the last stop in America for people who have come through this propaganda machine of our educational system and the media, and they're in the workplace now and they have no idea how much this election matters to their job, to their paychecks, to their opportunities and freedom for the future. They have no idea. So please, business owners, employers, I beg you, talk to your employees. And if you need talking points, I have a free ebook on my website. You can go to prosperity101.com, get the free ebook. You can, listen to my podcast. You can get our Breakroom Economics course or order the books, whatever, but it will give you good starting talking points, because some people are afraid to talk about it. But employers, you need to talk about it because you're the last stop.
You absolutely are. I've known, Phil and I used to own a Snelling franchise years ago, Snelling Personnel Services. So we dealt with folks on, higher upper management jobs, receptionists, clerks, whatever. It was all across the board, even attorneys and doctors and nurses and what have you. But there were a number of business people that would say, they really didn't go to church and they didn't want the employees who were going to preach to their people, but they actually invited churchgoers to be employers. And so one guy just asked him, I said, why? And he said, well, if they follow the 10 Commandments, I don't have to worry about them stealing from me. And he said, I don't even go to church. But he was willing to hire somebody who was a Christian, so he didn't have to worry so much about, And of course, there's a difference between somebody saying they are and then not really being a Christian, because you can judge, if you want to say that word, on what people do and how they do live their lives. But let's talk for just a few minutes about Prosperity 101 and just give people more info, because we have some new listeners and folks who watch the show. So give them the vibe. What is Prosperity 101 about?
Prosperity 101 was created to help employers educate employees about the policy issues that affect their jobs. I had been speaking to employers who were often telling me, I'm leaving this state if a business-friendly governor isn't elected. I'm moving my company out of state if we don't get better business policies. And, to which I knew that millions of people go to the voting booth every election and vote themselves right out of a job because they're low information voters. They don't understand. And they don't, they listen to, just the headlines or whatever's on TikTok or Facebook, whatever, but they don't dive a little bit deeper. And so I just felt called by God to write my first book, which was the first edition of the book you see behind me, Prosperity 101, and Job Security Through Business Prosperity. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? But a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't understand that our entire economy runs on business. Mm-hmm. It's business that fuels the economy, not government. The government can't do anything until we give them the money first. Now, business owners know this because a large segment of their, gross income has to go to taxes and fees and licenses and all these other things, right? That government requires. Okay, so we feed this hungry monster of government through business. And a lot of employees or just consumers don't realize that that is a business paying that. But you know what? They're paying it. They're paying it through maybe lower wages, higher personal taxes, higher prices in the marketplace. I mean, everything gets impacted when government takes more money. So that's where Prosperity 101 comes from, because I wanted people to understand how all of this affects their daily life. And in my podcast, I covered just about every single issue. We've covered, the border and trafficking and immigration policy. We've covered energy, oil, gas, nuclear, renewable, everything. We've covered the economy from multiple aspects. We've covered election integrity and stuff, but it's all part of this whole big web of information that people need to understand. And you don't have to be a political nerd, like maybe I am, but you need to know enough. I think one of the posters on my website that I offer to employers, and please, if you go to the website and you want those posters right now, just use the code MTN to get a discount on that. And they're very affordable. So just go to prosperity101.com, use code MTN, capital MTN, and you can get that. And the reason I have that code, I was just going to say one of the posters in my poster pack is basically the Bill of Rights and just saying, are you voting for a person who will protect your rights? Mm-hmm. However, a lot of employers are afraid to even put that up. And, we need to inject a bit of courage into these employers and say, no, you need to protect your rights. You need to stand up and help others understand this as well. But I mentioned that MTN code because, obviously that can mean mountain, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking.
There's these mountains of culture that are all part of every culture. Basically, you have business, family, military and government, education, arts and entertainment, I can't think of the others right now, but you have all these mountains of education, and we can dive into those too after the break a little more deeply if you'd like. But my goal is to make sure that we take back the mountains, so that we can reclaim the culture. You were talking about how things were so different before. It used to be, if somebody obeyed the 10 Commandments, well, people don't even know the 10 Commandments anymore. And it's not that we want state-sponsored religion, which is what the left fears that any Christian is asking for. We are just asking for freedom to practice religion, but also our culture promoted those Judeo-Christian values. And don't we all want to live in a culture? Don't we all want to live in a country where it's against the law to murder?
I think so. And this is something that I take a step back from this, okay, because there are people who defend Muslims, and there are people who defend other religions, and then they also, defend gay rights, lesbian rights, those kinds of things, but they're defending the wrong people.
Right.
No one who's a Christian is going to behead somebody because they are homosexual.
Right.
We're not going to do that.
Right.
But now this is something that I've done some research on, and this is how people in the Middle East treat people who are gays and lesbians. They will, especially a woman, and a woman, by the way, who has an affair with a man. The man gets by with it, but the woman is buried up to her neck in the ground, and they stone her.
Heartbreaking.
Now, what kind of woman's right? Okay, you're a woman's rights activist, and you would be for that. I mean, because if you're not one thing, you're against another. If you're against one thing, you're for another thing.
Right.
I don't know how I can look at it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that reminds me of that saying, for every yes, there's a no. For every no, there's a yes, whether how we choose our time or what. But okay, so these pro-Palestinian pop-up riots, these pop-up protests that are being paid by the globalist elites and things, it's like, really? Now you get all these, college students or liberals that are in marching and talking about it. And it's like, did you realize what will really happen to transvestites or gays or lesbians or women in general? I mean, it's unbelievable. And this same leftist side that is promoting all that is also, here in America saying, well, men can compete in women's sports. This is just insane. Like, it's an attack on women overall. But the language and the brainwashing actually, gets these people to think, well, I'm standing up for women's rights, but you're not. You're not. No.
It's incredible to me that people would think about it that way. I remember I grew up in the 70s. Helen Reddy, I'm Woman, Hear Me Roar, the song, that was always really popular. So it's
Helen
crazy.
Reddy, yeah. I am Woman, Hear Me Roar. And Gloria Steinem, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was crazy, the songs that were out there. But what would those women during that era, what would they have thought of in that time had a man competed in a woman's sport?
Oh, they would
have thought women's rights.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like Title IX, I remember Title IX became law in between when my sister graduated from high school and when I graduated from high school, right? My opportunities were just tenfold of hers, to participate in sports and other things. And now I look and I think, we fought for how many years to get those rights? And now women are just like rolling over and saying, okay, we need to
You're
go.
sending us back 100 years or longer.
Yes. But this is all part of the bigger picture. And I know we talked about this a little bit in our last interview. What we're dealing with now. When listeners see this, we've got an election day coming, November 5th, right? What we're dealing with now in America is so much bigger than Republican versus Democrat, than Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, than, right versus left. We are dealing with literally good versus evil. We are dealing with, are we going to have a globalist, elitist control people, not just in America, but all over the world? Freedom is being attacked all over the world. And freedom fighters are being attacked. Some of the same things that are happening to our freedom fighters are happening to people in other countries because it's this globalist elite. It is time for us to stay up and say, not just I am woman, hear me roar, but I'm an American, hear me roar. I am a free citizen, hear me roar. I don't need the government to give me my rights. I have rights. Our government is to protect our rights, not give us our rights. We don't get our rights from government. We have our rights as God-given rights. Every person has that. And it's up to government to stay out of the way of the infringement on our rights. So we have to stand up for that. We have to say, I'm an American, hear me roar. I'm not bowing to the globalist cabal.
Let me ask you a question. How important do you feel this is Custer's last stand? Do you feel that this is the last chance we have at freedom, this election?
Yes, absolutely. I do, because if the leftists, progressives, globalists, actually Marxists get control, which they're working very, very hard to do.
They're working overtime.
We will not have another free election. If we do not win. And so I tell people, look at what Trump did in the 4 years he was there. We didn't have, if he was going to do all these horrible things that they claim he does, or he's going to do, wouldn't he have done that?
He'd done it, yeah.
And what was life like? Interest rates were lower, costs were lower, Black, Hispanic, women, home ownership was on the rise. Their jobless rate was lower. Their employment rate was high. People were doing well, and America was at peace. We had Middle East peace accords. We had no new conflicts around the world. We had, a great increase in our energy production. We were really roaring, right? But now they're saying, oh, he'll be horrible for things. I'm like, wait, hasn't all the horrible things happened in the last 4 years?
How could you get worse?
We have all these, wars on several fronts. We had the whole Afghanistan debacle where 85 billion of equipment, was given over to the Taliban, and we left Americans, and, soldiers died. It was horrible. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible foreign policy debacle and embarrassment for America. Not only that, it endangered and ruined, ended lives for American citizens. So, we have that. We have the inflation. We have, just the lawfare against so many individuals who have fought for freedom. I could go on and on and on about policies, but, I just ask people to think. Are you really better off now than you were 4 years ago? I don't think there's a single person who would say, oh, yes, I am, except maybe one of the globalist elites who found a way to pump tax money into their coffers.
And that's what happens too. You have to think about this. Wars make money.
Yes.
Why do you think we have so many? And they want to call it and make it sound good. Well, it's just a conflict. It's not really a war. In my mind, our soldiers, people out there on the line, are being killed. It's a war.
It's war. Yeah. And here's the thing. We're in a war between good and evil. So it is. But there's been so many unconstitutional uses of our military overseas that, and now in America. Because that's a new directive from the Biden administration that American military, for the first time, can turn on United States citizens. So this is a real concern as well. This is something that's always been prohibited. The American military was only supposed to be used in foreign conflict, not ever against American citizens. So this is a real concern. Along those lines, people need to think about the fact that these illegal immigrants are coming in, and this administration is not everywhere, but in some cases have allowed them to become, law enforcement officers. Some of them have been allowed to join the military and things. And it's like, this is concerning.
It sure is.
And so we need to make sure that we pay attention to this. And I think, so listeners out there, if you've been one of the complacent ones, like we are all guilty of it because we've grown up in freedom. We did not have to scrap and fight for every little piece of food. We didn't have to scrap and fight for everything that came our way in terms of freedom or opportunity. We didn't have to travel. Like if we were born here, we didn't have to travel thousands of miles and leave our home or our families to try to have better opportunity. So we become complacent, right? We don't think about, we just take our freedom for granted, kind of like the air we breathe. Well, you mentioned it being the last stand. This is a last stand for freedom. It really, really is. And along those lines, I just want to tell people, people often think I wear a tin hat or whatever. And I've been talking about these things and warning about these things for like 40 years, as soon as I started waking up, right? And you could see the progression, and we are really at a tipping point. But this book right here, this was the 2013 to 2015 edition. I invite people to get this. I don't get any, remuneration for this. It's just something I think people should be aware of. It's called The Enemies Within. Here, I'll put it there, by Trevor Loudon. He is an amazing researcher. This book is Communists, Socialists, and Progressives in the U.S. Congress. This is, I remember he signed it. I have a signed copy, which is a blessing to me. But the first time I read this, and this is from 2013 to 2015. I would like the new edition now. So Trevor, if you're listening, I'm ready. Anyway, but I would love to see the newest one. I need to get that copy. But The Enemies Within by Trevor Loudon, and his website, you can just search for him. It's Loudon, Trevor Loudon. And his research is just incredible on the financial ties, the organizational ties to people within our government who are actually known Marxists, socialists, communists. It's eye-opening.
Well, I have to tell you, I noticed little things like old TV shows. I mean, I'm talking about Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
There's some little things I've picked out of that, and I've thought, because this has been going on, I think, since the beginning of the world.
Yeah.
Since Earth was created.
Yeah, it's the battle of good and evil.
It always has been. So there's some things and I try hard not to, because I love that Andy Griffith show, but sometimes something will be said and I'm like, am I overreacting? I mean, it was something about, it was like Christmas and they didn't say Christmas, they called it a holiday. But now they've had another show that they mentioned Christmas all through it. You know what I mean? So I try not to be so much, but I'm alert. I mean, call it tinfoil hat. I'm going to get the designer tinfoil hat, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm see if I can create it.
Well, and one of the things people need to understand too is that they will always tell you. Like what I have found out is there's always a Hollywood movie prepping our mind. I mean, they want to get us ready for what they're bringing. So it seems so incredulous. Like, look at the Hunger Games. Look at some of these movies, The Matrix. It seems so fictional that it could never happen, but it conditions us, right? And it's this brainwashing, it's this propaganda programming, but they will always tell us. People can go back and look at The Simpsons. The Simpsons are incredible. They're like prophetic, right? I never even watched them all the time, but I've watched them.
I wouldn't even let my son watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the dad was always a moron on it, and the mother ruled, and then the kids were smarter than the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. But you look at some of the things that they've had.
Donald Trump coming down on the
unbelievable. So there's more to this story than what is playing out. And I love, just because I know that there's been a lot more behind the scenes over the years too. This is another reason why I want to see President Trump be reelected, because he will open up those JFK files. He will open up the Robert F. Kennedy files. He will open up the Martin Luther King files. And, I bet he's got enough pressure on him to get that Epstein list out because, but this is why they want to get rid of him, because he wants to expose truth. And truth is what America needs. Truth is what America needs. We need sunlight on all this. We need sunlight and we need justice. So we need to pray that evil gets exposed and justice is served for the evil as well as the innocent, because there's a lot of innocent people suffering now and they're not getting the justice they need. And so we just need to pray for that. There's been a lot of corruption. And as sad as I know a lot of conservatives were when Trump lost in 2020, I look at it, kind of like how God works all things together for good, because without that loss, I don't think as much corruption would be exposed. So we've had to live through a horrible 4 years of our country just deteriorating and our freedoms being wiped away one by one by one. But it also, opened the books in a way and helped us see what is really there. And so, if you have cancer, you want to identify the cancer, right? And then you can go in and have surgery and get it out, right? And so this is what we need to do. We need to get the cancer of Marxism, communism, socialism out of our government. And one of the ways is by identifying it and then calling it out and bringing back a lawful rule of law and true constitutional government.
Absolutely. Linda, we have to go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Oh, I love having you on the show. We'll be right back. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. I think Linda Hansen is beginning to really like riding home with all of us. You got a huge crowd riding home with us.
Well, that's wonderful. So to all your listeners, all your viewers, I say thank you. And, just become an informed citizen. Become an active citizen, really stand up for your rights, learn about the issues, and make sure you share it with others. We have a country to save. Yes, it is up to us. It is up to us as we the people to save this nation and to stand up for freedom. We can't sit this out. We started this broadcast by talking about how Kamala Harris told young people who declared Jesus is Lord, she told them, you're at the wrong rally. That's at the smaller rally down the street. And, for anybody to do that, you can see she's shown her true colors. And as I said at the beginning, you don't have to be a Christian to understand that that's not what we want for America. We want to be able to have religious freedom for all people. And for her to say something like that, we really need to look at the direction the country has been going the last 4 years. And, you may be a voter that doesn't vote every election. You may be, someone who has never voted. You may be listening and you're never voted, or you're a first-time voter, or you don't think your vote counts. You think, oh, they're just going to steal it anyway, or how do we even know if it's safe and secure? But, you are going to make the difference. You make the difference by going to the polls and voting. And I encourage everyone to vote in person. If you vote early, that's fine, but please do it in person. Don't do it by mail. That's my plea. My personal plea. A lot of people are fine with mail-in voting. I am not. I tell people, if you like mail-in voting, then take a $500 bill, put it in a white envelope, and mail it to yourself and see if you're okay with that.
You may not get it back. Odds are you won't.
Right. right. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah, they
think,
hire some characters who work at the post
yes,
office.
yeah.
They-
And
they
early
don't.
voting is fine, but I would recommend go in and do it in person, and then make sure that you're registered to vote and check your voter rolls. Every state has like a voter list, a way to check the voter rolls. Do you have college students who moved away and live in a different state? Do you have elderly parents who may have passed away? Have you moved? Is someone voting with your name at your old address? All of these things happen. I know even here in Wisconsin, I'm involved, right? When my youngest daughter moved away and went to college and was voting in another state, it took me 2 years to get her name off of the voter rolls when I went in. Every single time. And I kept asking, can we get her off? And, so these are things we need to be really aware of. And check your address, check the spelling of your name, all of these things, because it has been ripe for voter fraud. And for those who say there is no voter fraud, or I see these articles where Donald Trump perpetuates the lie that there was election fraud in the 2020 election, and it's like, if you are unsure of that, reach out to me or Donna, and I can send you information of actual cases. We know it's happening now with early voting in some states. We've heard many accounts of things happening. And the other thing to watch out for, everybody in your community, if you want to protect our elections and protect our country, make sure that it's only legal citizens who are voting. And I'm not just talking about even those immigrants who are here legally. It's still a felony for them to vote. So make sure they understand, so they're protected. There are so many immigrants who would love to vote, but they can't because they're not a legal citizen yet. But there'll be people who tell them they can. And that's a deportable offense. It is a felony. But illegal immigrants, many of who can't speak English, they're just being signed up and registered to vote, and they're being put in places to vote again and again and again. This is just so wrong. So please, in your communities, be watchful for that. If you can be an observer at the polls, if you can be a poll worker, any of that, please just do what you can to make sure all laws are followed during the election process.
You're going to love this story. So my grandmother always worked the polls. My granddad did as well. It was just their civic duty. They wanted to do that. And the town I'm in right now. And it was a very serious thing for them. And they would say, no, as soon as you're old enough, you're going to vote, right? Like that. And of course, I thought it was a privilege. It was an honor. It was almost like learning to drive.
Yes.
And getting my driver's license. It was like, I can drive, I can vote. I mean, it was just a huge thing for me. So anyway, I went to a training, supposed to do that in your county.
Right.
You live in. So I went to a training, and so they were talking about how you had to see the ID, under no circumstances. If enough people are there who recognize who the person is and they are an American citizen, blah, 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 well, then you can do this affidavit, and that takes a little bit of time and all that. So anyway, this guy comes in. I had been living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I decided, well, I'm just going to pick up and go where my grandmother was. My grandmother had passed away, and I thought, well, I'm going to take the role like my grandmother had. Mm-hmm. So I get in there, and there were two ladies who were sitting here to the side of me. I was the third person. They wanted to go to lunch, so I said, yeah, go on. And so they let me handle the book, when people were coming in and asked to see the ID. Well, this guy comes in, and I didn't know who he was. And so anyway, he comes in strapling, and, I'm a king kind of an acting guy, and I said, hi, welcome, and so I said, I need to see your ID. And he said, why do you want to see my ID? I said, because I have to see your ID. And I said, I don't know. He said, everybody here knows me. And I said, but I don't know you. And I just didn't say another. This is negotiating Donald Trump 101. You shut up and let them tangle their own self up. And they will. They will do that.
Let them hang themselves by their own rope.
Yeah, he'll do it his own self. So anyway, I just sat there and looked at him, but I did smile. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't crude. I was nothing like that. But I smiled at him when I said that. And he said, well, it's out in the truck. And I said, that's okay. I'll wait on you. We're not busy right now anyway. Nobody's behind you in line. Go ahead and get it. Okay. Well, the guy who was behind me was a liberal. Okay. And he said, Donna, everybody knows him. And I said, I got this. So he comes back in, didn't bring it in. And he said, everybody knows me. And I said, you work for the government and you're just testing me just to see if I'm going to ask for ID. Is that what it is? Like, and I just smiled at him when I said that. And it kind of threw him off just a little bit. He wanted me to get mad and yell and scream, carry on. And I'm not going to do that. It's not my personality. Right. And so anyway, he said, no, I don't work for the government. And I said, I bet you do. You're just testing me to see if I'm going to do the right thing, because if I do the wrong thing, you won't let me come back. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, well, I'll go get it. And then he went to the truck and he gets it and brings it in. And I said, thank you. And then I get it and I started writing the information and everything off there. And I said, thank you. I thanked him like a million times. Well, he walked around mumbling little curse words, I think is what he was doing. So he walks around, he goes to the back, and then he votes. He's Democrat, by the way. And then he was really loud, boisterous Democrat. And then he comes back through and he looked at me and I said, thank you. Mm-hmm. And just smiled at him in such a gracious way. And then he said, you're a conservative, but I think I like you. And I said, I like you too. And then he leaves. And then the lib, he was sitting by me, he said, everybody here knows him. He's a businessman in the town that we're in. And I said, but I don't know him. I'm doing what I was instructed to do. And first of all, he was trying to give me such a hard time about it. I could have easily said, okay, go over there. Those people know you. But you got to sign the affidavit. We're not going to let you vote without something. You know, I could have done that. Right. But I thought, no, I'm going to hold on to him. And the next time he sees me, he's going to remember that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we have to be bold. We have to, in a nice way. I'm not talking about carrying, cussing, and all this kind of stuff. I'm just talking, you can do things in a nice, civil way and let the other person be the bad guy.
You certainly can. And, really asking for an ID to show that you are a citizen, a legal citizen is, really.
I wasn't asking for his dentures. I was just asking for
one of the things that's happening this year, and I invite people to go and listen to my podcast. You can get it on Apple Podcasts, all the major podcast things, but go to prosperity101.com. You can subscribe or listen there too. But I did several recently on election integrity, and one just got released today on the UOCAVA vote. It's the overseas vote, and the left is really talking about trying to get a lot more overseas voters, that they're going to swamp the vote with the overseas vote.
That's asking for trouble.
But it is, because especially they're estimating more ballots to come in than there are actual overseas voters that are eligible to do that. But people are abusing this UOCAVA vote too. So I really invite, this is a long issue that we can't really go into right here, but I invite people to go and look at my most recent podcast or listen to it. And it is, what is UOCAVA and why should we be concerned? Because UOCAVA, I say in the episode that, to most people, it sounds like some exotic fruit or something, can you have fries with that? I don't know, but
and my virgin pina colada, could we put it in there?
Yeah, but it's not though, and it's a really serious issue, and it is a loophole that we need to make sure we're aware of and that we take care of in our election process. And so there's legal battles going on now to make sure we protect the UOCAVA vote. It was originally intended for the military and military families. It's expanded, but now it's expanded to the point of abuse. And so we need to look at that. The other thing, like I mentioned before, we have to make sure that it's only citizens voting. And, people will cry, oh, we're being discriminatory or we're racist or whatever. No, we're not. It is federal law, only citizens vote. And we are actually protecting the illegal immigrants, or even the legal immigrants who aren't eligible to vote yet. We are actually protecting them by helping them realize that it's against the law for them to vote. So, we have these laws for a reason. Really, American citizens should be deciding, if I have doors on my house here, of course, in America, we don't have borders right now. So it's like, we don't have doors on our house, right? But, I get to decide who comes and goes, right? I get to decide. And I can set the rules to the house, It's like, even when I have grandkids come, it's like, well, these are the rules at Grammys, right? And, what parent hasn't said to their kid, well, in this house, you will XYZ, whatever it is, no
Mhm.
TV after 8 or, whatever. But in America, we have rules that define our election processes, and we need to follow them. And when they are not followed, those votes are ineligible. And we need to make sure that we're aware of what the processes are, and we hold our officials accountable to that. So listeners, please contact your local clerk, find out what the process is, see if you can be involved as an observer or something, and make sure you go vote. Make sure you look at your ballot first too. Like every place will publish a sample ballot. I don't think there's probably anybody who hasn't gotten to the voting booth at least one time when you go through and go, oh, shoot, I forgot about that race. And who is that person, right? And you don't really know, right? I mean, it's happened to me, and I'm an informed voter, right? So we have to look at the entire ballot. I think I was hearing in Arizona, it's like a 15-page ballot in some of the counties. And so we need to look at this. Don't quote me on the 15 pages. It's quite a long ballot, and people are saying it takes a long time. So they're encouraging people to go vote early so it reduces lines. And there's supposed to be extreme voter turnout this time around. So yes, go ahead and vote early. Go vote early in person. Make sure it opens it up for people on election day, that maybe that's the only day they can come and vote, and they don't have time to wait in line, So we just have to make sure that our voice is heard this time, and no one can sit this one out. So if you are somebody who sits back and think, oh, it won't count, it won't, it's not even accurate, or they're going to win anyway, well, don't put up the white flag. I mean, are you willing to fight for your freedom by just going and casting a ballot? This is so important.
It's extremely important. My son lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and my daughter-in-law, and he and my daughter-in-law voted early this time, and he could not believe the turnout. And now Raleigh's pretty liberal area out there in North Carolina. And so he said behind him, my son, he meets no strangers. Okay. I mean, everybody is, he's friends. Right. He has just thousands of friends. So he turns around, there's a black guy behind him wearing a Trump shirt and a Trump hat, MAGA hat. And so Brad said, cool, And so he said, no doubt you're voting Trump. And so the black guy said, well, I hope you are. Like that. You could tell they'd been picked on just a little bit, but it wasn't just him. He said it was like almost everybody. And this is Raleigh. Okay. He said almost everybody. He's like the Rover reporter without being paid for it. So he was just talking to people that were saying that I just don't like her.
Yeah.
And
it isn't that she's a woman. Of course, we talked last time too. Here are people who are telling us we can't define a woman. They can't define a woman, right? Their Supreme Court nominee was asked, "Can you define a woman?" She said, "Well, I'm not a biologist." It's like, excuse me, right? So, but we're supposed to vote for Kamala because she's a woman, or they tell us not to judge anyone by skin color, but they tell us we should vote for her because she's a black woman, right? Or she claims to be a black woman, right? I mean, people are fed up with this. And, the minority men especially are really rising up for Trump, because also the First Step Act, this is something that Trump brought in, the First Step Act, and these so many minor offenders who have been in jail extended times. They need to be out of jail. They need to be able to have opportunity. And this is something that's really important. So, I think that she's reaching in to the minority community in a way that she doesn't expect, by pandering to them and thinking that just because she's a woman or of a minority, that she can get their vote. People are smarter than that. So people are smarter, and they're wising up. I mean, you talked about Raleigh, a liberal city, New York City. I mean, Trump was just at Madison Square Garden. I saw one account that said 200,000 people gathered to watch Trump. I mean, so many thousands were on the outside. They were inside, outside. They were everywhere. I saw a parade in Japan where there was a huge float of President Trump, and Japanese parade goers were going, fight, 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 as they were marching. And it was Trump on this, because the world knows, the freedom loving world knows that we have to have a strong America. We have to have someone that will stand up to these dictators. We have to have that. We have to have a prosperous America. And, for the left to be calling this a Nazi rally, I mean, there was every religion there, every race there. There were all kinds of Jewish people there marching, supporting. It's like, well, for a Nazi rally, that was amazing. Right?
That was no Nazi rally.
First one we've ever seen, right? But this is their playbook. It's name call. My former boss, mentor, friend, colleague, just dear friend, Herman Cain, who I was the deputy chief of staff for his presidential campaign. He used to say that it was, they'd ignore the facts and name call. They'd ignore the facts and name call. He called it the sin tactics. So they'd I can't think of the first one, but they'd state the thing, and then they'd ignore the facts, and then they'd name call. So it's like, they just revert to that all the time, right? That they will just, if they can't get their message out and get people to think, they'll just go on ad hominem attacks to the other person. And it isn't about the policies, it's about some name calling thing. And, to the low information voter, that can work. But, I tell people, look beyond that. And, if all they can do is name call,
then so be it, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, ask people why they're voting for Kamala. Almost no one can say why.
She's a woman and she's a minority.
And pro-abortion people, but I say, so you are voting for someone based on the fact that you want women to be able to kill their children, right? Now, I also saw a video the other day. It was just great. I forget the guy's name, but he did a little Instagram video, and he had all these, if it's not murder to abort a baby, why is it murder when, someone kills a pregnant mother, and then it's a double homicide? If it's okay for a man to compete in women's sports, can an able-bodied athlete identify as disabled and compete in Paralympics? It's just one thing after another, where it's like, if you compare what is rational to what they're saying, they don't line up.
Well, you just have to think about rational things. I'm talking about in everyday life. So 4 years ago, we were driving down the road, Highway 75, very small town. And so we passed by and saw a mobile home. There's a single wide mobile home. I have no problems with single wide mobile homes, but I did question this. Okay, it's a single wide mobile home, and it looked like an older one, but the nicest metal fence you have ever seen in your entire life is surrounding this mobile home. I have to question that. I have to wonder why are you spending probably $50,000 on a fence? It's nice. It's not some cheap something that I would put together. I'm talking about, this is a nice metal fence.
Yeah, with could be a meth lab or something.
With a gate. I'm sorry, old Donna here has the thing, something's up there. So I have a friend who's like me. She wears a tinfoil hat and all this, and so she passes through this area, and so I asked. She's with the Eagle Forum here in Alabama. So I said, "Okay, here's old Donna's tinfoil cap here on." I said, "Did you say you're going to go through Highway 75 today?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, you tell me if I'm like going crazy or something." I said, "But there is a single wide mobile home. It's an older version mobile home. And the nicest gate, they had to have spent at least $50,000 on the gate. Okay, probably more, and the fence. I'm talking nice gate. Okay, so she said, "I'll go check it out." And so she called me right when she passed by it. And she said, my God, something's going on there. I said, so it's not just old Donna being crazy. She said, no, something's up there. So she said, I just felt weird passing by it. And I said, I do too. I said, but no one in the town seems to be noticing this. And then I'm noticing these little areas where people have sold land and they're putting these little trailers and these little campers out. We're not a tourist area. This is farming country, good old boy country, whatever. In my area right here, we have a nice lake, Guntersville State Park. It's like 30 miles from here. There's no reason you would want to live in a camper here. There's no reason, right on the highway. I mean, I can see a camper. I'd love to have a camper on a half an acre at Guntersville State Park. I would love that. But here, there's no reason for that. Then I'm digging a little bit more, and I'm seeing where they're having problems with Haitians. They're being bussed into the little town of Albertville, which is just 20 miles from here. Well, they're running out of room in Albert. They're running out of inventory, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, 2 + 2 is 4. Add another 2, that's 6, right?
Right.
There's just so many things happening. You have to question it.
Yeah, and that was a really good example of keeping your eyes open to what's going on, because if you know that some of these things are happening, you can be alerted, just by things that seem out of the normal in your area, right? So here you've got immigrants coming in, right? Who owns the land? Who's buying up the land? Watch to see who's owning the land. Who frequents those properties? Is it a trafficking operation? Is it a drug operation? It might be all on the up and up, but it doesn't hurt to look. And I mean, there's so many communities, it's not just Springfield, Ohio, that are affected by thousands and thousands of immigrants coming in and, being bussed in there, being placed there by our government at taxpayer expense, and, really upending the whole cultural norms of that community. It's happening all over the country. So we have these immigrants coming in. We have Bill Gates and the Chinese buying up all the farmland, interfering with our food supply. We've got, energy interruptions that are hurting us all. Speaking of interruptions, we've all heard of, technology, internet crashes and, hacking and things. For a while, there was a big plan to have a cybersecurity experiment or test. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but the U.S. government was going to do a cybersecurity operation on, of all days, November 5th. And it might affect, internet in different communities around the country. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I would like to follow up, because I know that Senator Rand Paul really started to question that. And I saw one thing recently that said that they were backtracking now and changing the dates of that. And so I hope that that's true. I can't confirm that right now because I only saw one thing on it. And I like to, before I talk about something, I like to confirm it with multiple sources. So I invite your listeners to look and see. But this cybersecurity event that was supposed to be held by the government, I'm hoping has been delayed. And if so, kudos to Rand Paul for speaking up. And again,
Yes.
that goes to show that one person can make a difference. Yes, he's a senator, but you don't have to be a senator to make a difference. You can make a huge difference. Maybe you're the one who alerts your senator or your congressman to something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can't know about everything.
That person.
Yes, I have literally had many conversations with elected officials about details of issues that they knew nothing about. They cannot keep track of everything. And so it's up to us as citizens to let them know about issues that affect our daily lives or affect jobs in our communities or the security in our communities. Like, a lot of this stuff that's happening now is because, like I said earlier, we got complacent. We grew up in America and we just think, as American citizens, it's always going to be that way. I talk to people who, when I talk about some of the illegal things that are happening or the censorship that happens to people or how innocent people have been thrown in jail for illegal activities, they look at me with this look like, well, that's illegal. Well, that's against the Constitution. I'm like, yes. That's why we're fighting.
Thank you for saying that. Linda, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you guys so much for watching. It's such a pleasure that you will do that. You will spend some time with us. We definitely appreciate that. Linda, you the best, girl. So you hang around and get you set up for the next time. Okay. Everybody have a super duper awesome rest of the day. We'll see you later.